Hi. It started with lavender. Not the soft kind you find on linen sprays or hand creams, but a sharper version, laced with something masculine, something that didn't belong in our home. I still remember the exact second I noticed it. I was sitting on the edge of our bed, scrolling through emails, when she walked in, keys jingling in that hurried way of hers. She kissed my cheek like she always did. Casual. Normal. But I froze. New perfume? I asked. She blinked. Salon gave me a spritz. Some complimentary nonsense. I nodded, but my mind didn't. She turned away too quickly, disappearing into the bathroom, the scent trailing behind like a story begging to be read. That smell, warm, spicy, confident, wasn't hers. It was his. I didn't know his name yet, but I knew he existed the moment she stepped through that door. You can't fake comfort. You can't fake familiarity. And she smelled familiar with him. We'd been married 6 years at that point. Long enough to share inside jokes, grocery lists, quiet mornings. But not so long that I should have felt like a stranger in my own house. I watched her pull her hair into a bun in the mirror. Her fingers moved quickly, almost impatiently, like she wanted to erase the part of the day I hadn't seen. The part one hadn't been invited to. The next morning, she left early. Said she was heading back to the salon to fix the toner. I didn't ask. I just nodded again. I was good at that. Nodding, pretending, swallowing the ache of 100 quiet suspicions. But I followed. I know how that sounds. It makes me sound paranoid. Desperate. I wasn't. I just needed clarity. And clarity doesn't come from arguments or accusations. It comes from observation. She drove to a small cafe, not the salon. Parked. Walked in. 5 minutes later, he arrived. Tall. Tanned. Smiling like he'd done this before. I didn't have to see them touch to know. Their body language did all the talking. Her shoulders relaxed in a way they never did with me anymore. Her laughter was fuller, not the clipped, distracted kind I'd gotten used to. They didn't sit close. Didn't hold hands. But they didn't need to. It was in the way they mirrored each other. The ease. The comfort. Like they'd already rehearsed the story they'd never tell me. I drove home before she saw me. And for the rest of that day, I did nothing. No confrontation. No dramatic monologue. I folded laundry. Paid bills. Made dinner. She came home hours later with her hair still the same shade of brown. I thought they were fixing the toner. I said. She hesitated for just a beat too long. They couldn't fit me in after all. Oh, you smell like coffee. Another beat. Then she smiled. Stopped by the cafe. I nodded. Again. I kept count after that. Every lie, every deflection, every convenient vagueness. She said she was working late, so I drove to her office. Lights off. Car gone. She said she was meeting a friend, so I checked her stories. No friend. No post. Nothing. Her location was always just a little off. Not enough to scream guilty, but enough to whisper look closer. One night, she left her phone on the kitchen counter. Unlocked. I didn't go looking through her texts. I didn't need to. It was a notification that did it. A calendar alert for Thursday. Lunch with M. M. Just an initial. Innocuous. But familiar. She'd used it before, when texting a work contact. Always M. I opened her contact list. No M. Not under that letter, anyway. But under Monty Petty was a number. I copied it down. The next morning, I called it. Hey, beautiful. Miss me already? A voice answered. He hung up when I didn't reply. I didn't tell her I knew. Not yet. Something in me needed to understand why first. Not why she did it. God knows marriage is complicated, and I've made my share of mistakes. But why she thought she could lie so easily. Why she thought she could come home, crawl into our bed, and pretend I didn't matter. The perfume wasn't just a scent. It was a flag. A declaration. A truth she hadn't meant to tell. That night, I watched her sleep. She looked peaceful. And that's what broke me. Because I wasn't. Every inhale reminded me of the man she met for coffee. The man who called her beautiful. The man she came home from, smiling like nothing had changed, when everything had. And maybe that's what betrayal really is. Not the act itself, but the denial of its weight. The pretending. I needed to see how far she'd take the lie. So I smiled more. Asked her how her day was. Cooked her favorite meals. Watched her as she spun new stories, wrapped in borrowed perfume. She never noticed that I stopped touching her. Stopped leaning in. She thought my silence meant safety. That my stillness meant ignorance. She didn't realize it meant the opposite. And in the quiet, I started building something. Not revenge. Not yet. but awareness. A map of every inconsistency, every omission. Because love doesn't blind you. Trust does. And I was done trusting. 3 weeks after that first call to M, I followed them again. This time it wasn't a cafe. It was a hotel. Not one of those flashy downtown towers either. No, this was quieter, tucked away near the edge of town, the kind of place you pass 100 times without noticing. But I noticed. She parked 2 spots from the back entrance. He was already there, leaning against his car, arms crossed like he was born waiting for other people's wives. They didn't kiss. No touching. No overt display. Just a glance, a smirk, a nod toward the door like this was routine. Practiced. I stayed in my car. I didn't take pictures. I didn't need proof anymore. She lied to my face that morning. Said she had a hair consultation. I made her breakfast. Eggs and avocado toast. Her favorite. She barely touched it. Nervous about the new stylist, she said, tapping her phone. You know how picky I get about my hair. I nodded. She wore a red dress. Tight. New. She said it made her feel confident. Said she might stop at the market after. I asked if she'd be home for dinner. She said she'd try. The car ride back from the hotel took everything in me. I gripped the steering wheel tighter than I needed to. My jaw ached from clenching. I don't know what I expected, maybe rage. Maybe some kind of emotional detonation. But it wasn't like that. It was quieter. Heavy. Like dragging your feet through water, trying not to drown. At home, I sat on the edge of the bed again, same spot where it all started. The lavender scent still lingered in the sheets. I don't know why I hadn't changed them yet. Maybe I wanted to keep the reminder. Maybe part of me needed it. That night, she came home humming. She always hummed when she'd been with him. I don't think she realized it. You're in a good mood, I said, folding laundry. She shrugged. It was a good appointment. What did the stylist say? She blinked. About your hair. You said it was a new consultation. Oh, she said I need to let it rest. The color's too processed. She was getting sloppy. The lie tripped out of her mouth like a pebble off a cliff, harmless in size, but devastating in what it told me. She wasn't even trying anymore. I smiled and handed her a towel. The next day, I started packing. Not in a dramatic way, just slowly, carefully. The things that mattered, my grandfather's watch, the box of photos from my childhood, the journals I'd filled over the years. I moved them to my office one by one, under the pretense of decluttering. She never asked. I took meetings, kept up appearances. But inside, something shifted. I stopped asking myself if she loved me. I stopped wondering when it started. I just started preparing for when it would end. And I began writing. Every night, once she fell asleep, I'd sit at the kitchen table and document everything. Dates, times, conversations. Her lies, cataloged like museum pieces. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I wanted clarity. A map through the fog. 2 weeks later, I saw them together again. They were walking through the park. Broad daylight. No hand-holding. Just close enough to feel inappropriate. She was laughing. Not the forced, shallow laugh she gave me when she was distracted. This was deeper. Real. The kind of laugh I hadn't heard in our house in months. Maybe longer. And that's when it hit me. She wasn't just cheating on me. She was happy doing it. There's a difference. You can feel guilt and still be human. Still have something worth fighting for. But to lie with joy. To come home to me each night and treat our life like background noise. That's cruelty. That night, when she showered, I pulled a receipt from her coat pocket. A boutique wine bar near the hotel. 2 glasses of red. 1 charcuterie board. Signed with a flourish that wasn't hers. His card. His treat. She hadn't even bothered to hide it. I placed the receipt on her pillow. She came out of the bathroom, hair damp, humming again. What's that? She asked, toweling off. Something I found. She looked at it, and for a moment, just a flicker, her face dropped. Then, like flipping a switch, she recovered. Are you seriously going through my pockets now? No, I said calmly. It fell out when I hung your coat. She scoffed. You're being paranoid again. I nodded. She crawled into bed, receipt untouched. Turned off the lamp. Just like that. Like the paper between us didn't scream everything she refused to say. The next day, she didn't mention it. She thought the silence meant surrender. But it wasn't. It was the final breath before the plunge. I had one last thing to do before I left. One more thread to pull. And it started with a name. Who's M? I asked her casually over coffee. She looked up, startled. M? Yeah. The contact in your calendar. She hesitated. Oh, Melissa. From the Salon. You have her under Mani Petty in your phone. She blinked. That's her full name. I smiled. Right. That was the moment. Not the hotel. Not the scent. That. Watching her face fold under the weight of a lie she couldn't keep straight. It was done. I just hadn't walked out yet. But I would. And when I did, I wouldn't slam the door. I wouldn't yell. I wouldn't ask her why. I already knew. Perfume can't hide the truth forever. Eventually, the scent fades. But the lies? They linger. She woke up to an empty bed. I'd left before sunrise, quiet as breath. Not because I was afraid, but because I wanted the silence to speak louder than any goodbye ever could. There was no note. No suitcase missing. Just absence. Sharp, clean, unignorable. I drove to my brother's place 2 hours away. He didn't ask questions. Just opened the door and gave me that look. The kind you give someone who finally did what they should have done months ago. He handed me coffee, and we sat on his back porch as the sun came up, both of us quiet in the way only brothers can be. By noon, she called. Once. Then twice. Then 7 times in a row. I didn't answer. The texts followed. Where are you? Did something happen? Can we talk? I didn't mean for it to be like this. There it was. The tell. Didn't mean for it to be like this. She knew. I didn't block her. I just let the words stack up. I wanted her to sit in it. Let the weight of silence press against her like the scent of that cologne she thought I didn't notice. On the 3rd day, she left a voicemail. Her voice cracked halfway through. Please. Just tell me what you know. Please. Then silence. Then a whispered, I'm sorry. But she wasn't sorry for the cheating. Not yet. She was sorry I found out. I went home 2 weeks later. Not to reconcile. Not to yell. Just to pack. The house was immaculate. Almost performative. Candles lit. Her in a soft sweater I'd once said made her look like autumn. She stood in the doorway like a wife out of a catalog. Like maybe, if she played the part well enough, she could reverse what she'd broken. She didn't speak at first. Just watch me walk to the closet, pull down boxes, start folding shirts. You're really doing this, she finally said. I nodded. I've already done it. She stepped closer, arms crossed. Was it him? Is that what this is about? I paused, halfway folding a sweater. You want to talk about him now? Her voice wavered. Nothing happened. I mean, not the way you think. I let out a breath that was almost a laugh. You don't even know how I think anymore. She bit her lip. I was lonely. So was I? Every night. Every morning. Every moment you chose a lie over a conversation. She continued. I didn't plan it. I didn't fall in love. That was the thing. I didn't care if she loved him. What shattered me was the ease with which she deceived. The smile she wore after each lie. The warmth she gave him that used to be mine. You know, I said, looking around. For a long time I blamed myself. Thought maybe I worked too much. Maybe I didn't ask enough questions. Maybe I stopped noticing you. Tears gathered in her eyes. That's not it. No, I said. It's not. Because even if all of that was true, I never lied to you. I never came home smelling like someone else and told you it was lavender. Her face collapsed then. I folded the last of my clothes, zipped the bag, and stood in the hallway. I looked at the woman I once planned a life with. The woman who laughed in my passenger seat, who held my hand during doctor visits, who danced barefoot in the kitchen on Saturday mornings. And I didn't feel anger. I just felt done. You remember our anniversary last year? I asked. She nodded, cautious. You said you forgot to make a reservation, so we just stayed in. Ate frozen pizza. Watched that movie you liked. She nodded again. That was the night you texted him from the bathroom. Her hand went to her mouth. I opened the door. You stopped being my wife long before I stopped being your husband. And I left. I moved into a small apartment across town. Clean. Sparse. Quiet. I started therapy. I ran longer routes in the mornings. I called my mom more. Sometimes I'd think of her in the middle of making coffee or folding socks. Not with hatred. Not with longing. Just like a phantom limb. Something that used to be there. Something I learned to live without. She messaged me 3 months later. A long email. Full of I miss you, and I see things clearly now, and I didn't realize what I had. She ended it with, if you ever want to talk, I'll be here. Always. I never wrote back. Because by then, I'd learned something important. Love doesn't just disappear, but trust does. And once it's gone, what's left isn't partnership. It's performance. Perfume can't hide the truth. And no matter how she tried to bury it under new stories, new smiles, new clothes, He clung to her like a shadow. He was in the shift of her tone, in the way her eyes darted when I asked questions, in the silence between our conversations. She said she was going to the salon, but she came home smelling like him. And I finally knew what that scent meant. Not betrayal, but the end. Bye-bye.